everybody, it's Ian the Off-Kilter Crafter. I hope you're having a great day today. It's time to work on Clue 8 for Carnival. So close, but yet so far. Let's go ahead and put together clue number 8 and see what we have in store and more pieces to add to the puzzle. And are you starting to guess what it looks like? Because I certainly am. All right, here we go. Let's take a look at what clue number 8 has in store for us. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with clue number 8. I again have my color guide, my clue packet 8, and my instructions for my large carnival. Let's go ahead and open up clue packet 8 and see what's included. First off, we have 8 squares of fabric F. Next, we have 2 small rectangles of fabric A. We have 2 larger rectangles of fabric B. 24 small triangles of fabric E. We have 8 small triangles of fabric D. We have 16 small triangles of fabric B. We have 16 small triangles of fabric C. Next up is 8 small triangles of fabric A. We have I don't know if they're calling this a medium, a large, what this is, but a longer, we have 2 of the longer A rectangles. We have 2 medium-sized triangles of fabric A. And lastly, we have 4 large triangles of fabric A. I'm going to go ahead and put these on the table next to me, and we'll go ahead and get started with step number 1. All right, first off, we're going to be starting with section 8A. For step 1.1, it says to join a small triangle of E to a small triangle of D. Just like that, we're going to make 4 of those. For 1.2, we're going to join a small triangle of E to a small triangle of C, just like that. And then for step 1.3, we're going to sew 1.2 to the right of 1.1, and we're going to make 4 of those in total. So we're basically making kind of a flying geese shape using our fabrics that you see here. And then for 1.4, we're going to rotate step 1.3 so that it is so that C is in the bottom left corner, and we're going to join it to another step 1.3. So basically what we're going to do, hold on just a second. Okay, pretend that I've sewn this all together and this is what it looks like. You'll see it here in just a second. But basically we turn it upside down so it has our CEDE fabric just like this, and we're kind of creating that what do they call it, a windmill? I think this is a windmill shape, but you got your bow ties forming here with our D fabric, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to stop talking about it. I'm actually going to sew all this together. I'm not going to come back in between each step, but I'll meet you back here at 1.4 and when I'm pressing it out, and we'll be able to see everything put together and you'll get a better idea. But I'm going to go ahead and do all this and I'll come back when I'm pressing it out. Okay, there we go. I have sewn all those together and now I'm pressing upwards, which in this case, it's the same block even if you turn it 180, so it doesn't really matter which way you press it up. But on step 1.1, we press towards our E. For 1.2, we press towards our E. For 1.3, we press towards our ED half square triangle. And for our 1.4, we press towards the top. So there we go. There is 1.4. Let's move on to our next step, which is step 2. All right, moving on to 2.1, it says to join a small triangle of E to a small triangle of B. We're going to make 4 of those half square triangles. Step 2.2 says to join a small triangle of D to a small triangle of E. But pay attention here because we're only making 2 of those. I almost tripped up and started to make 4 of them, but we're only going to make 2 of them. And if you make 4, you'll run out of fabric. So there we go. We are going to make these like that. Then for 2.3, oh, there's more. Okay, for 2.3, we're going to take a step 2.1 unit and sew a F square to the left. So we'll add on that F square onto the left like that. For 2.4, oh, and by the way, we're only making 2 of these. We only need to make 2 that look like of step 2.3. So then 2.4 says to take another 2.1 unit, and we're going to sew it to the left of a step 2.2 unit, so it looks like this, and I pointed to the wrong one, but basically we're going to form something that looks like this. Our E fabric is going to be touching and creating that diagonal. Then for 2.5, we are going to join them all together to create a square. So when we put it all together, our E fabric will be lined up on the diagonal, and then our B fabric will sandwich in that F square so that it looks something like this. Let me sew all this together and I'll come back when I'm pressing it out and you'll see it in a better state. Okay, I've sewn all those together and now I'm going to be pressing upwards towards my F fabric. So it might be a little hard in that center spot because there's so much bulk right there, but just kind of work it out and there you go. I forgot to mention that the pressing instructions for 2.1 are to press towards our E fabric, 2.2 towards our D fabric. In 2.3, it's towards the BE half square triangle, and in 2.4, it's towards the BE half square triangle. So it should look like this whenever you're done with step 2.5. Let's go ahead and move on to step 3. All right, moving on to step 3, it says to join a small B triangle to the top of an F square, just like this. And then we're going to press that towards our B. And then we're going to add our second B triangle to the left, like this. And we're going to press again towards our B fabric. And it looks like this when we are all finished. And we're going to be making 4 of these in total, and it says down in the bottom of that, in all bold letters, it says to press carefully to avoid stretching the fabric, because we have some biased edges here. So we're going to press this very carefully and make sure that we don't stretch it out a lot. We're going to work on it and make sure that it's going to hopefully stay just like that is. I'm going to go ahead and sew all of those together, and I'll come back when I'm pressing it out. Okay, I have sewn all 4 of those together, and now I'm pressing my last one away from the F fabric towards the B fabric, being very careful not to stretch out my biased edges. There we go. There's step 3. Let's move on to step 4. Okay, step 4 says to sew a large triangle of A to each of the step 3 units. We're going to do this 4 times, so we're basically going to put them together just like that. For step 4.1, it says we're going to press 2 of these towards our A fabric. And then for 4.2, we're going to press the remaining 2 units towards our B fabric. So half of them will be pressed towards our A fabric, half of them will be pressed towards our B fabric. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll come back when I'm finishing up pressing. Okay, I finished step 4, including 4.1, which presses towards the A fabric, 4.2, which presses towards our B fabric. We're going to go ahead and move on to step 5. All right, moving on to step 5, it says to join a step 4.1 unit. Remember, that's pressing towards our A fabric to the left of a step 2.5 unit. So when we put them together, it should look like this. Our B's will form a bow tie right here in the center, and then our F fabric is following a diagonal, and so is our B fabric as well. So it looks like this whenever we're done. We're going to be pressing this towards our large A triangle piece whenever we're putting this together, and we're going to be making 2 of these in total. So we're just going to sew this seam right in the middle. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll come back when it's time to press it out. Okay, there we go. I have sewn those together, and now I'm pressing towards the side that has the large A triangle on it. So I'm pressing to the left, and there we go. So it looks something like this when it's all said and done. Yeah, that's pretty good. So there we go. That is our step 5. Let's move on to step 6. For step 6, it says to join a step 1.4 unit to the left of a step 4.2 unit, just like this. Remember, our 4.2 presses towards the B fabric, and it looks like this when we're going to be all said and done. Again, we're just taking that middle seam. I'm going to go ahead and sew them together, and I'll come back when I'm pressing them out. All right, there we go. There is our finished step 6 block, and I forgot to turn on the camera while I was pressing, but I'm pressing towards the right side of my block so that way we can nest when we put everything together. Let's move on to step 7. All right, moving on to step 7, it says to sew a step 6 to the top of a step 5, and we're going to make 2 of these. So basically, we're just putting these together like this. Again, we have a diagonal with our F fabric, with our B fabric. Everything kind of lines up, and we also have a diagonal with our A fabric as well. I'm going to go ahead and sew these together, and I'll come back when it's time to press both of them out. Okay, I've gone ahead and sewn those together, as you can see, and now I'm pressing down towards the bottom of my block. It's a little bulky in some places, but I'm doing my best here. There we go. All right, so that's what it looks like. Hopefully I got everything. Yeah, everything is pressed out, and we press down towards the bottom of our block. There it is. That's what it looks like when it's done. We are going to label these as either section 8A or clue 8A, depending on how you want to label them. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to set these off to the side. We'll move on to section 8B. All right, moving on to section 8B, it says to join a small triangle of C to a small triangle of B. So we're going to put these together just like this. I tripped over my words there. For 1.2, it says to sew a rectangle to the left of a step 1.1. So we're going to be connecting that B fabric. And then for, I almost was about to say 1.3, but there is no 1.3 because it says then to add an F square to the left. So we're going to create a strip that looks like this. It has F, B rectangle, B triangle, C triangle. Wow, I can't talk today. There we go. It's going to look like that when we put it all together. I'm going to go ahead and put it all together, and I will come back when it's time to press it out. We're only making 2 of these, and remember, we're going to be pressing away from our B rectangle in the center. So out from the center is how we're going to be pressing this all out. I will do that and come back when I'm doing that. Okay, there we go. I have sewn all that together, and now I'm pressing, again, I'm pressing away from my middle B rectangle. So we're pressing out from the center of our sequence here, just like this. And there we go. We have 2 put together like so. I'm going to move on to step 2. Okay, moving on to step 2, it says to sew a small triangle of C to a small triangle of A. We're going to make 2 of those. 2.2, sew a small E triangle to a small C triangle, make 2 of those. And then for step 2.3, we're going to join step 2.2 to the right of a step 2.1, so that way our C fabric lines up in that diagonal. I'm going to go ahead and sew all these together, and I'll come back when it's time to press it out. Okay, I've sewn those together, and now I'm pressing towards my C, E half square triangle. So they look like this, and we've made 2 of them, just like that. Let's move on to step 3. Okay, moving on to step 3.1, it says to sew a small E triangle to a small A triangle. So we're going to put those together like that. We're going to do that twice. Then we're going to sew an E triangle to a small D triangle, just like that. We're going to do that twice. And then we're going to put our whole sequence together so that our E fabric is lined up in that diagonal. I'm going to go ahead and sew these together, and I'll come back when I'm pressing it out. Okay, I've sewn those together, and now I'm pressing towards my EA half square triangle, just like this. So we have 2 of those put together like so. Let's move on to step number 4. For step number 4, it says to join a step 2.3 unit to the top of a step 3.3 unit. We're going to make kind of a chevron shape there. Kind of, sort of. It doesn't exactly, but it's kind of that way. I'm going to go ahead and sew these together, and I'll come back when it's time to press it out. Okay, I have sewn those together, and now I'm pressing down towards the bottom of our square, or a block, I should say. So I'm pressing away from the top. There we go. All right, so I have pressed those down towards the bottom, just like so. Let's move on to our next step, which is step 5. All right, moving on to step 5, it says to sew a small triangle of B to the top right of a medium A triangle, and then we're going to press that, and then we're going to add a small C triangle to the top left, and we're going to press that, and then we're going to join a long A rectangle to the bottom, so we kind of form an arrow-ish kind of shape there. That's what I'm going to go with. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put all that together, and I'll come back when I'm pressing it out. All right, I have sewn those together, and I'm pressing down my A fabric away from the main A fabric in this flying geese. So it looks like that. There we go. We are done. Let's go ahead and move on to our next step, which is step 6. Okay, moving on to step 6, it says to turn step 5 so that the A rectangle is on the right. So as you see here, and then we're going to add on to the right, we're going to add a step 4 to the right, just like this. Our A fabric will line up forming that chevron, as you can see here. So I'm going to go ahead and sew these together, and I'll come back when I'm pressing it out. Okay, I've sewn all of that together, and now we're pressing in the opposite direction of the arrow. So normally, a lot of times it feels like we're pressing towards the arrow, but in this case, we're following away from the arrow. We're going opposite of it, and there's a lot of bulk in this part right here, so I'm going to add a lot of heat to that area, so that way I can keep pressing. There we go. So we're going to press it away from the arrow, and as you can tell, I'm stalling for time to press out this block. There we go. That's close enough. So there we go. That is what our step 6 looks like. Let's move on to step 7. All right, moving on to step 7.1, it says to sew a small triangle or small E triangle to a small C triangle like this. Then we're going for 7.2, we're going to sew a small C triangle to a small A triangle like this. And then for step 7.3, we're going to sew a small E triangle to a small A triangle, and then we're going to add an A rectangle to the left, just like this. And then for 7.4, we're going to connect all those together into a single strip unit. And I'm going to go ahead and sew all that together, and I'll come back when it's time to press it out. Okay, I've sewn those together, and now we're pressing away from our CA half square triangle. So out away from that block is how we're going to be pressing out everything. There we go. So I have completed that step. We're going to move on to our final step, step number 8. Okay, moving on to step 8, it says to sew a step 1.2 to the top of a step 6. So it should look like this. You've got your C fabric lining up here. Then it says to sew a step 7.4 to the bottom, like so. Our E fabric will line up, our A fabric will line up, our C fabric will line up, and we're going to sew 2 of these together, and then we'll be done. So I'm going to go ahead and sew these together, and I'll come back when it's time to press it out. Okay, there we go. That's what it looks like when it is all said and done. We did press it down to the bottom of our piece here. We're going to label this as either section 8B or clue 8B, however you want to label it. I am going to go ahead and do that now, and we have completed both of them. Let me grab the other one. All right, there we go. We have completed 8A and 8B, and I'm going to put the label on these, and we'll get ready for month 9.